August 15th, 2023 meeting of the Greensboro City Council. We are in the Katie Dorsett Council Chamber. People wishing to speak must sign up by 6 p.m. by using the Q-Minder kiosk just outside the council door, or please see the courier for assistance. Let the record reflect that all members are in attendance. Please silence any electronic devices. If you must make or receive a phone call, kindly do so from outside the council chamber. We will begin tonight's meeting with a moment of silence. I would like us to keep the family of Brian James in our prayers. There was the homegoing celebration for his mother today, Norma Jean Wall James, and we all love Brian and his family and want him to know that our thoughts are with him.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, if we could keep Reverend Belvin Jessup, who served on council in 2001, in our prayers, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and also the family of Kathy Norcott was funeralized Saturday. She's director of Piedmont Sickle Cell, and her service was Saturday. And don't forget Daddy Bailey.
Thank you.
No, I think that's very nice, Mayor. Also, for me, the family of Saliba Hanhan, who owned Jerusalem Market, passed away, and also a dear friend of mine over the years, Kathy James, who was a deputy in the Sheriff's Department.
And I hate to add another name, but Bishop Bailey, who was the head of the United House of Prayer for All People, passed away on the 11th, and we know that he worked with the city for many years to create Bailey Village, and so if we would keep his family and his church in our prayers as well. Thank you. Mrs. Johnson, would you lead us in the pledge?
I think I can do that, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. In order to maintain a safe space for all speakers, members of the audience or speakers from the podium who intentionally disrupt the meeting or ridicule other speakers will be given a warning, and if unheeded, they will be removed from the meeting. That person will be suspended from in-person participation for 3 months. In order to preserve their right to free speech, they can attend virtually via Zoom, phone, or email. It is the goal of the City Council that this chamber is a welcoming space and that all our residents feel empowered to bring issues of concern before their elected officials. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes for comments on specific agenda items. On zoning matters, we allow for a 15-minute presentation for both sides and a 5-minute rebuttal. Zoom participants are requested to mute their microphones until they are called upon to speak. All meeting attendees are expected to respect speakers and council deliberations. People disrupting the meeting will be removed from the meeting. By statute, council members must vote on all items unless there is a direct financial interest or if they sit on a board of a nonprofit receiving funding from the city on that item. All votes will be moved and seconded by what are believed to be routine the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no. Items removed from the consent agenda for discussion. This meeting does include closed captioning. Depending on the length of the meeting, we may take a short break around 7:30. Now this is the time for our city manager's report. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I'd like to quickly share with you, at least give you some further information with regards to request for proposals that we was issued August 10 of this month. I think that was last week. So request for proposals for facility management services to manage the Coliseum Complex, Tanger, Performing Arts Center, and associated facilities. However, before I do that or give you the details of the RFP itself, I'd like to share some rationale for why we issued that RFP. If you look on the screen in front of you, that kind of gives you the breadth and the scope of what we currently manage when it comes to the events, activity space that we have. Pretty much about 12 venues that we operate right now, more than 100 full-time employees, over 1,400 staff that manage the event. Since 2011, I believe that we've introduced 9 additional venues, including Tanger. And so we've done this pretty much for the last 30 years, successfully managed this Coliseum and our facilities. However, the complex has become too large for any one individual to manage. And to his credit, he's not in the room tonight, but our director, Matt Brown, has done an amazing job of managing these 12 venues. Like I said, including the ones that we opened, the 9 that we opened between 2011 and now. Managing this has become a little bit complex, obviously, by one person. It's not sustainable, and it's not even the best practice. So since I came on board about a year and a half ago, I started discussing with Director Brown a pathway to succession planning for him. And in exploring opportunities, what we found was that we were one of the few remaining cities that really still manage the way we do. Next slide, you will see even in the state of North Carolina, we are one of the few, probably the only one, that's still managing and operating our venues using public resources and having one person doing it. We know that best practices that's really sustainable is to be able to do this moving in the direction of private management. The next slide shows a wider range in terms of the Southeast itself. You look at cities like Atlanta, or even Nashville, Baltimore, Wilmington, even Winston-Salem, cities that are near and far, are migrating in the direction of privately managing their facilities rather than relying on one individual. So hence the reason for issuing that RFP, request for proposal, on August 10. Next slide will kind of give you a snapshot. This is not everything, but on page 10, for those who are listening, the details of the timelines on page 10 of the RFP itself. But this is a snapshot in time. That's immediate. It was issued on August 10. There will be a pre-bid meeting by the end of this month, but we have a 2-month period by which proposals can actually respond by October 6th. So that gives a 2-month period. What's not shown on that screen is that the period of August 23rd, those who are interested in bidding can actually visit Greensboro, visit the site, not virtually, but really come to walk through some of the facilities and see what we currently have, and also what we envision to have. We've talked about a music hall downtown. We've talked about a soccer stadium, if possible, downtown. What's also not shown there is that tomorrow, Director Brown will be meeting one-on-one with the employees at the complex and really answer questions that they may have. And on August 25th, I have a brown bag series that I do with employees once a month that I will also have with our employees at the Coliseum as well, providing opportunities for employees to ask questions and then also being able to provide clarity that they may need. But we've given that 2-month time frame for proposals to be able to visit us, submit a bid. We have an opportunity to review them. Council will consider this on November 6th. But before Council considers this, in October, we will have a work session with you all, which will be, about an hour of really sharing with you what those proposals are that we might have received, what the expectations may be, and I believe that the public is also interested in knowing what that looks like going forward. So that's likely going to happen on the October 12th work session. But between now and then, we will continue to make sure that we provide answers to employees that have questions. And if you also have questions, we'll also be available to answer them as well. So that's what I wanted to share with us tonight before we move forward. I know that information is out there in the public realm, but I wanted to make sure that we correct whatever wrong narrative may be there. So again, starting from tomorrow, Director Brown will start having one-on-one meetings with employees, over 100 of them. And then on August 25th, as part of my brown bag with employees, I will also be speaking with our employees as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to the consent agenda portion of our meeting. Do I have a motion and
Yeah,
a second?
move the
or are we
consent
mo-
agenda.
Or are we removing anything?
Move the agenda.
I second.
So I think it was moved by Mrs. Hoffman and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0. We now move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda, and we will take items H1 and H2 together. We do have two people signed up, actually two people who have provided comments prior to the meeting in favor of this. Item H1 is a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at 5735 Eckerson Road, 12.04 acres, Shaub Mosa, on behalf of Winita, WINITALL and CTX LLC. Item H2, a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 5735 Eckerson Road, Shaub Musa, on behalf of WINITALL NCTX LLC. Mr. Kirkman?
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn. People just sit here. There we go. The request before council this evening is an annexation and original zoning request. The property is currently zoned county agricultural, and they are requesting city RM8, which is residential multifamily. North of this request is currently zoned county RS20, residential single family. East and west request is county RS30, residential single family, and county AG agricultural. And south of the property is currently zoned city R5, residential single family. The subject property is currently undeveloped at this time. North and east of the request are single-family dwellings as well as undeveloped land. South of the request are single-family dwellings, and west of the request is undeveloped land. The property is currently designated as industrial on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and on the future built form map of the comprehensive plan. Staff has concluded that this request does support the comprehensive plan's creating great places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the Building Community Connections goal to maintain stable, attractive, and healthy places to live and raise families. The proposed RM8 district is intended to accommodate a variety of medium-intensity residential uses that are generally compatible with the existing residential uses in the surrounding area, and also can provide housing opportunities for workers at nearby industrial and commercial uses closer to U.S. Highway 29. Staff is recommending approval of these requests. These items were heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their July 17th meeting, and the Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of both items. There was one speaker in favor and none in opposition. I can answer any questions.
I do have one speaker signed up in favor, Sam Schultz.
Good evening. My name is Sam Schultz. I am a realtor with United Realty Group. I'm here representing Shoaib Mosa and Win It All NCTX. I am their local realtor. We've, of course, been using local firms to make sure we have a good interplay here with the city of Greensboro. We believe this development will be very good for the community. We are a mix of single and two-story townhomes as well as single-family homes to try and have a good transition from the existing communities into the new community as well. I don't want to take a whole bunch of time. If there's any specific questions that the council has, I am more than happy to address them.
Any questions for Mr. Schultz?
Thank you very much.
Then do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Ms. Thurm. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Do I have any comments, or do we have a motion on the annexation? Second. Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0. Item H2 will require a statement of consistency. Do I have a motion? Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mr. Holston. Dr. Wells?
Zoning amendment statement by City Council on consistency with adopted comprehensive plan and reasonableness. The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property at 5735 Eckertson Road from County AG Agricultural to City RM8 Residential Multifamily 8 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 comprehensive plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future built format and future land use map. The proposed city RM8 zoning district as conditioned permits uses which fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Thank you. Please vote. And that passes 9-0. We will take items H3, 4, and 5 together, and 6. Item H3 is a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for properties located at 2220 and 2300 Z4 Huffine Mill Road and portions of 260 Willow Lake Road right-of-way, and I-840 right-of-way, 46.03 acres. And item H4, a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning and rezoning for 2220 Huffine Mill Road and a portion of 260 Willow Lake Road, Mark Isaacson for D Stone Builders, Inc., for Rocco Chicola and Jennifer Chicola. And item H5, a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for a portion of Willow Lake Road, City of Greensboro. And item H6, a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 2300 Z4 Huffine Mill Road and a portion of the I-840 right-of-way, City of Greensboro. And Mr. Isaacson is here for questions. Mr. Kirkman?
Move H3. Oh, you want me to wait?
Yeah, let's do a brief
I promise
overview.
I'll be quick. So there's a lot going on here on the map, but basically this is an annexation, original zoning, and rezoning request for several properties on Huffine Mill Road and Willow Lake Road, as well as portions of existing right-of-way. So the existing zoning for these properties are County AG Agricultural, County RS 30 Manufactured Home, and City HI Heavy Industrial, and the request is to go to City Planned Unit Development, City HI Heavy Industrial, and City CM Commercial Medium. The properties currently contain single-family dwellings, undeveloped land, and as I noted before, 2 portions of right-of-way, one for Willow Lake Road and a portion of I-840. North of the request are single-family dwellings, I-840, and undeveloped land. East of the request is also I-840, undeveloped land, and a water treatment plant. South and west of the request are single-family dwellings and undeveloped land. The subject properties are currently designated a combination of industrial and residential on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, and is industrial, exurban, and urban general on the future built form map. The the planned unit development is a conditional district, and these are the 2 conditions that are associated with that request. Staff has concluded that these requests do support the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the Building Community Connections goal to maintain stable, attractive, and healthy places to live and raise families. The proposed planned unit development district as condition allows moderate intensity residential uses that can support the nearby industrial uses and are also compatible with various nearby residential uses. All of these items were considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their July 17th meeting. The commission voted unanimously to recommend all of these items for approval. There was one speaker in favor and none in opposition. I can answer any questions.
Thank you.
I want to move H3.
And that was for the annexation. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Abusawader. Council, please vote. That passes 9-0. Item H4 will require a statement of consistency.
Item.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Dr. Wells. Mrs. Thurm?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning and rezoning request for the properties at 2220 Huffine Mill Road and a portion of 260 Willow Lake Road from County AG, County RS 30 MH, and City HI to PUD, Planned Unit Development, to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City PUD zoning district as condition permits uses which fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. 3, the request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Council, please vote.
Madam Mayor, can you do a voice vote? My computer is hung up.
Yes. Mrs. Hoffman? Yes. Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mrs. Abusawader? Yes. Mr. Matheny? Yes. Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Mrs. Hightower? Yes. And that passes 9-0. Item H5 will also require a statement of consistency.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Dr. Wells?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for a portion of Willow Lake Road right-of-way from County AG Agricultural and County RS 30 Residential Single Family 30 to City CM Commercial Medium to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City CM zoning district as conditioned permits uses which fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Council, please vote.
Councilmember Hightower?
And that passes 9-0. And item H6, which also requires a statement of consistency.
So moved. And I move.
Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Abusawader.
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for 2300 Z4 Hopfine Mill Road and a portion of I-840 right-of-way from County AG Agricultural to City HI Heavy Industrial to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City HI zoning district as conditioned presents permits usage which fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and the approval is in the public interest. And this also adds, most of these that we have done add to District 2. So District 2 has gained a lot more tonight.
You can read.
Councilmember Hightower.
And that passes 9-0. We now move on to the general business agenda. Item I-1 is a resolution to make certain determinations regarding the financing of firefighting equipment pursuant to an installment financing agreement and requesting the local government commission to approve the financing arrangement.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Abuzawader, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0. Mr. City Manager, I would like to see if we could get Fire Chief Robinson and his group in to talk to us about the firefighting, not only the respirators, but the whole turnout gear. It seems like there's more to PFAS that is impacting our firefighters besides the firefighting foam that we've heard a lot about. But the cancer rates among the fire department really is concerning, and I think we have to do a long-term plan for replacing their equipment.
And whatever more protection we can give them.
Correct. Item I-2 is a resolution approving a bid in the amount of $1,757,087.48, authorizing execution of contract, sorry about that, 2021-011 TIP EL 5101DR with Smith Row LLC for the Murrow Street Boulevard Bridge repairs.
Move the item.
Moved by,
So I have a question.
okay, let me just, it was moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Sharon?
So I'm reading the MWBE memo that's attached, and so as I read it, it talks about, because this is transportation once again, there's a DBE. However, it still says that there were a few firms that were to be used on this project. They don't even list who they are. Well, let me take that back. They list the name, but it doesn't tell me if they're all W's, they're all M's, whatever. So who knows who they are, where they're coming from, if they're even in our 27 county MSA area. So I have a lot of questions tonight on MWB. So I don't have a lot to say because this has just gotten too disgusting for me. Can somebody explain?
Can somebody address Mrs.
I'll see if,
Hightower's?
I'll look these names up and see if we can determine whether they're M's or W's, and we'll make sure that that is documented on future MWB memos to specify that.
Whether or not they're DBEs or not, yeah, we would still need to know if they're local companies being utilized or if they're outside the 27 county.
The memo
MSA
does say
area,
that they're
and they
within the
should-
Greensboro relevant marketplace.
They should be in our relevant
Yeah.
marketplace.
So they are at least that, but I don't know whether they're M's or W's, but we'll determine
I do
that.
know, Eric K., but I would like for them to break it down for me, please.
Council, please vote. And that passes 8-1 with Councilwoman Hightower voting against. Item I.3 is an ordinance amending Workforce Investment Act fund budget in the amount of $222,500 for appropriation of Eastern Triad Workforce Initiative, ETWI, programming.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd just like to say that Murrah Boulevard is looking great. It's one of the gateways to our city, and the work that has been done so far has really improved that community.
Item I.4 is a resolution approving contract 2023-0310 in the amount of $1,632 with Musco Sports Lighting, LLC, for the new sports lighting at Bryan Park.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Therms, seconded by Mary Kay, and I believe that is for 6 of the fields? 5? 5 of the
Five
fields.
fields.
So that is to replace the lighting in 5 of the fields, and that was ARP approved money.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
While we're on the subject of Bryan Park, on those ARP funds, we allocated, was it $4 or $5 million for the fields to be, 2 of them to be turfed and others to be seeded?
I believe it was 5.9. Okay.
5.9. Where are we with that?
So currently with the adoption of this, we'll move forward with the lighting this fall. The field work will take place in the spring, and so those will be ready by next fall, late summer, because of the tournament schedule. We would need to do the installation, the infrastructure for the irrigation, and so we need to work outside of the tournament schedule. So we're actively moving forward with that now.
But we don't need to irrigate turf, right?
No, but the siding for the additional work for the other fields, we would need to.
Could we move forward with the turf fields?
You can move, yes, we'll be moving
Why
forward
would we
with
not
the
move
turf.
forward with the turf fields this winter? Because I think it would be better I would imagine there are less tournaments this winter than there are next spring and summer.
They're still operating tournaments year-round, but
probably not on those fields.
But based on the schedule of when they can mobilize, because obviously we'd have to go through the contracting process to get those things finalized, but we're actively moving both. It's easier to put in the infrastructure for the lights first, to get those moving forward on 2 of those fields, and then to move forward with the turf on the other. So it will be a work in progress, but again, the season typically will start to ramp up around about January, February, and then we can work outside of that to get the turf installed.
I think we need to move as fast as possible. And if we can move fast on lights, I would think we could move fast on turf. And planting grass on the fields that need it is the best to do in the fall, right?
We'd work through the winter. We'd work through because it's dormant, and so since it's seasonal work, we'd still be doing that as well, but that would take place in the late spring.
Maybe, Mr. Manager, it'd be great for us to have an update on that $5.9 million.
And this 1.6 comes out of that 5.9.
Right. Okay. But, I mean, I'm fine doing part of a project, but God, sure would be awesome if we did it all at once. Because if you're going to be putting in lights and wiring, and then it seems like you could try to do both or all of it.
Council, please vote, and that passes 9-0. Item I.5 and 6. I.5 is a resolution authorizing the sole source for $3,398,957 with mechanical equipment for the T.Z. Osborne wastewater treatment plant. And I.6, an ordinance to amend the Water Resources Capital Project Revenue Bond Fund budget funding for sole source purchase of influent pumps for the T.Z. Osborne wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $3,398,957.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Abuzawader, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. That's I-5. That passes 8-1 with Councilwoman Hightower voting against. Item I-6, we need a motion and a second. Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Council, please vote. That passes 8-1 with Councilwoman Hightower voting no. Item I-7 is a resolution to amend sales development agreement for East Block of the South Elm redevelopment area with NC Triad Associates LLC, Kagan's Development. And I do know that we have somebody on the phone, Mr. Brian Kagan, to assist in the presentation.
Actually, Brian couldn't be with us. I believe that's Jeff will be on the phone. But,
It's Jeff Kagan. I am here. Sorry about that.
hey, Jeff, Russ has a brief presentation to bring council up to speed.
And so who is the speaker?
That is Jeff Kagan, the father.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Russ Clegg. I'm the manager of the Long Range Planning Division. Oh, is that better? Thank you. Higher?
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce this item and then turn it on to Jeff Kagan of Kagan Properties to give you all more details. This is the South Elm redevelopment area outlined in green, with Gate City Boulevard to the north and Carolyn Coleman Way to the south. We are talking tonight about the block in orange, which is the block that the Kagans have a sales development agreement for. Tonight, the Kagans are asking for a small amendment to their sales development agreement. The current sales development agreement has a closing date of August 29th of this year, and for construction to begin by August 25th. Their proposal, which they'll go into a little bit more detail about, is to close no later than November 30th, so moving it out a few months, and with the start of construction within 365 days of closing, with completion of construction within 3 years. The Redevelopment Commission voted unanimously in favor of this amendment at their meeting last week on August 9th. Before Jeff speaks, I did want to remind everybody what the previous iteration of this was. On the left on this slide, you can see the current site as it is, currently is. There's USC campus here at the corner of Arlington Street and Gate City Boulevard. On the right, we have their recent proposal, which has an apartment building wrapping around Elm Street and to the south of the site with a separate parking garage. I will say throughout the process, they have brought things to the Redevelopment Commission in a timely manner and are ready to close. They just need this extra time for some additional testing. But at this point, I will let Jeff speak on the details of the project.
So the project, we made a number of changes to the project recently. The biggest change we made, we decided that we wanted to add more units, and now it's 203 apartment units. We decided to put the garage, a two-story garage, under the building. The reason that came up is because there's some environmental issues on the site that have been inherited forever, and the state wanted a vapor barrier under the building, which became extremely expensive. So if we put a garage under the apartment building itself, we avoid having a vapor barrier under the living units, which gives us two things. It gives us this vapor barrier that pleases state environmental section, and it also lets us have more units. Now we have 203 units. Is something the commission always wanted, more units. Our project initially was down to 152 units, which you all agreed was a little light. The only reason we're asking for a little more time, there's some issues right now. We want to do some retesting with environmental issues based on some issues we heard about across the street with Lido. So we just want to do some last minute testing. We had a meeting with the state by Zoom about a week ago to discuss some environmental issues. So we're going to do some more testing, some more drilling to make sure there's nothing hiding that we missed in the environmental section of the project. That's the only reason for the time delay.
Can I answer any questions that y'all may have?
And we should add that the Kagans, when they immediately spoke to the DEQ, put their environmental engineers under contract immediately so that testing could be done as soon as possible.
I want to say one more thing. The DEQ, I mean, when this project was first thought about many, many, many years ago, they changed some of their requirements. I can't control the state, obviously. They changed some of the requirements. Now they're requiring a little more testing, a little more issues. That's why we changed the garage under the building. This vapor barrier issue is an issue we're trying to solve, but we still need to put vapor barriers under any space, which will be a commercial space, which will be in red, I think, on the site there, a little commercial space there. We'll still put vapor barriers under those spaces. They won't be under the garage. The garage won't. So all the office stuff that's in orange and red will still need a vapor barrier because there's no garage under those buildings.
So if I may, because we've had extensive conversations with DEQ as all these conversations in the past couple of weeks. So we are in, this is not remediation. We've done that with the Brownfields grant. This is, and I just went blank on the right word, I'm supposed to use mitigation, excuse me. And they have not changed their standards per se. Those are still the same mitigation standards. You have to clean it up to the point of lessening the issues that possible contaminants might have on people. That's still there, but how they choose to test, because their experience over the past 10 years, some just putting vapor barriers in has not proven effective. So the only place they are testing here is where the leasing office and the gym are going to be placed, because they don't have a garage underneath them, so they're the closest to the ground. So they asked for some very specific testing to be done so that the mitigation measures could be designed appropriately. So our friends at DEQ asked us to correct whenever they say their standards have changed. It's how they get to that standard has changed a little bit as technology has improved.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzini?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since you're saying that it's how you get to the mitigation, when the city and Union Square and the county and the Cone Health and the universities partnered on building this building and this site, did we not take care of it then?
We remediated the site, which means we cleaned it up to a standard that was acceptable by what's now DEQ. What comes next is based on the land use. How is it developed? And that determines the mitigation measures that are needed. So we've done this now multiple times. Pardon?
I haven't been around here as long as I've been. I remember that vote many, many, many years ago. And we always knew that something was going to be built, and hopefully residential, on that property. So did we not fulfill what we knew was going to happen?
They cannot. So what happens is when a developer, because, for example, two previous developers who were looking at multifamily spoke with the DEQ about their building plans. They have to see the building plans. And so, for example, in this case, it is a perfect example as to why. The original plans they had showed the parking deck as a separate structure, and that the residential structures were more on the ground. They shifted it, put the parking deck under the apartments, which encapsulates that the brownfields area and reduces, that's an excellent mitigation measure. The only two parts are the ones closest to Gate City Boulevard that they need, that this place, it's not residential, but people will be in there in the leasing office, and they have to design it based on that size, that location, that specific location. So each development plan that would have come forward requires a different mitigation plan, which is what the final step is with the state.
So I think my concern, and having gone through and experienced what we went through with the adjacent property, is it's extremely difficult in today's work environment to achieve design and testing, design, proper mitigation in a 3-month period. And what I heard from Mr. Kagan is, all we need is 3 months, no big deal, we got it. That's a tight time frame in today's world. And so that's a concern of mine. I mean, as Mr. Kagan is on the phone, I mean, do you really think that you can achieve that in 3 months?
Well, sir, first of all, we've done testing. We've done drilling out there. We hired a firm a long time ago. We've done tons of testing on the site, and that's why we changed the design to the parking garage under the building. So this is the 3-month, I mean, this has been done for a long time now. I mean, the original design had a separate parking garage and the building separate. After doing some testing and talking to DEQ, it was decided that that was not going to work. I mean, some of the rules with them have changed. If the project was built 10 plus years ago, we probably done the original project, but the rules have changed. They've decided some more testing and some more knowledge they have about environmental issues that didn't exist 10 years ago, exist today. And they suggested some changes, and the changes were the parking garage now under the building. It does give us some more. The parking garage under the building is vented with, airflow and everything else to mitigate any kind of environmental issues. So that work's been done already. The only thing left to do is a small issue now with the few spots we have in red there, red and orange on the plan. If Sue could go back to those, some testing only in those spots because everything else has been done already. Yes, you're right. If we were testing the whole site originally, sir, 3 months would not be enough time. Of course, that's 100% correct. But we're just at the last little issue.
That helps a lot because we want this project to be successful. My thought process is, if you needed 4 or 5 months versus 3, then I would be willing to do that to give you enough time so that you don't come back here in 3 months and ask for 2 more months. And that was
your offer might be accepted. I mean, I can't. We've hired the new firm. The firm we hired the firm we used before for more testing. We had a call with them in DEQ. I can't remember, about a week ago now, maybe a little more than a week ago, to start the process. They said they would have all the information we needed. We kept Ross and Sue involved in the conversation. I don't have any guarantee with today's workflow with the world out there today, which seems to be slower than it should be. But our goal would be to get it done by then and close on the sale here. Yes.
All right. My final two, and Mr. Kagan, you might not appreciate this one quite as much, but typically when you have an extension, you have earnest money that goes hard. Was that the case in this one?
No, it is not, sir.
Well, that's disappointing from a city perspective, but it's an important project.
It might be disappointing, but I think I hate to say this, but what happened across the street with Lido just now has shaken all of us up about this environmental issue. I mean, I can be honest about it. The Lido situation with them right now, with all the issues there and the environmental issues with DEQ, has shaken us up a little. We were ready to close the end of the month as we promised to close, and this Lido situation shook us up. I'm the first to tell you that. We got scared with the Lido situation. That's why we're spending some more money and some more testing to figure out if there's any issue with our site.
And I totally get that. On the parking, since you've increased the number of units to 203, I believe you said, and you
Yes,
have a minimum requirement of 250, is the 47 extra parking spaces geared towards is it 10,000 feet of retail? So is that for somewhat of a public use?
So the parking lot is for our tenants and 70 spaces for the school.
Okay. Nothing further.
We believe residential tenants, in spite of what we could talk about, all day long, residential tenants want to have a parking space. They're not going to, I know we hope they'll walk, but realistically, someone comes home at night, they want to have a parking space for their unit.
No, I haven't had a comment. You want to wait for comments?
Dr. Wells moved. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Holston. Mary Kay, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just
before the vote?
wanted to say before I vote that I certainly understand about DEQ because having been in restaurant and having been owning businesses, for instance, there was a dry cleaner around the corner from the restaurant space I had that they change the rules every year. So we had to be careful because of all the dry cleaning, and there was a creek behind, and then with the stores, with gas tanks in the ground, you have to follow different rules every year. And quite often it will cost the developer or the business owner quite a bit of money. So I just did want to support that comment because it's true. They do change rules quite often.
So we do have a motion, and it is for the current 3 months, correct? Correct. Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote.
Councilmember.
And that passes 9-0. Mr. City Manager, I know that you sent us a memo about the Lidl site, which may have come from Sue or Russ. I think it would be good to redistribute that memo because I think there was different clarity when we got the memo from staff on exactly what the Lidl issues were. And I think it's important to send that out again.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Item I-8 is a resolution approving contract 2020-015A for $44,332,891.29 with Harper Company Electrical TZO, and item I.9, an ordinance in the amount of $44,332,891.29 for the Townsend Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 2 Electrical Improvement Project. We do have one speaker against I-8. Omar Jones. Sharon.
I would like to speak before we vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council, Mayor Nancy Vaughn. My name is Omar Jones. I reside at 6 Rexdale Place, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27407. I am speaking on the issue, the contract that Harper has engaged the City of Greensboro with. Cinda, the company that I represent, has had some back and forth on the bidding, pre-bid, mandatory bidding schedule for this project. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come to a bid opportunity because Harper wouldn't respond in the appropriate time, also given the appropriate information for us to make an accurate bid. There's a couple where we pre-bid and qualified for 4 different scopes of work. Those scopes of work were told to us that some of them would be self-performing, which I guess in this contract as a CMI at risk is not allowed. And we just wanted some clarity to really kind of understand what's the process. You know, I've been a part of the reconstruction of the MWBE program for probably the last 10 years, a member of the Greensboro Business League. We try to be very diligent in the opportunities that we pursue. Pre-bid meetings, contracting, it's not always the greatest science or the greatest hard numbers per se. And, you know, we have taken the proper steps, but it's small irregularities like this that, discourage MWBEs from even bidding on these opportunities, because there's always a workaround. There's always some type of gap or some type of inconsistency that allows for minority or majority firms to not use minority contractors. They wanted a hard number for an opportunity, but wouldn't give the information as far as duration of time, duration of man hours. It's a whole, list of scope of work that I could go through, but I'm sure you guys have already reviewed, and that makes it almost impossible for me to accurately give them a bid if I don't know how much work I'm going to be doing. And that puts my company at a disadvantage and also makes me look bad when I bid a most low responded bid and I'm not qualified or I can't carry out my contractual duties if I'm on the job. That's the easy way to get ran off, and then that ruins your reputation in the city of Greensboro, and you can't really work anymore. So I would like for us to at least, remove this item and maybe vote on it at another time, but the communication with Harper has not been the best, and we really would like to, come to a working understanding of what's needed in order for this to move forward. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, not a problem. So, Omar, are you asking us to postpone this item? Because I'm in favor of postponing
Yes,
the
ma'am.
item
Yes,
tonight to get a little bit more clarity on what happened. This is troubling to me as well. When I look at $44 million, $55 million at the GMP, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of lost opportunity. So I don't know who chose the CMAR process in this instance, but it does not appear that it benefited minorities, MWBEs, the way that it has always been stated that CMAR gives the greatest opportunities. But I've heard in recent times that it does not. This is the case where it does not, because as you break down the packages, it makes all of the subs now primes, and you have to meet the primes instead of being a sub on a project, which is what our program is. I'm in favor of postponing the item, and so Mr. Borchers, which I saw you move when the item came up, is there any reason why we can't postpone this to the next business meeting? And I would move that
I
we
would
would do
suggest
that.
we table this.
I would do that. I move that we would do that until we get more clarity around what is going on. And so I do agree. But I also want to say, and the reason I wanted to speak to this item, because at first glance, when you look at this item, you see there are 9 M's on this project and 2 W's. But what it says in the memo is that Harper did not meet the MWBE goals, which were 17. They are 3.4. But they met the W at 22% at a tune of over $12 million. This is glaring. And when you break it down even further and you look at the M's, 4 of the 9 are clerical jobs. They're admin. They speak to, the description of work is one company that's electrical, on this electrical contract, to be a contract admin of electrical installation review and oversight. If you can review electrical work, you can do electrical work. If I can tell you that blue doesn't go into red, green doesn't go into blue, and I see that your work is accurate and correct, I can do the work. This is not work, this is admin. This, to me, does not speak to the type of program that we're trying to have to improve, include economic development, improve it for our MWBE, particularly our M's, our black businesses. We're all suffering, but yet we're the last to get opportunity. We are still getting 3%, 2%, 1%. Something we're doing is not right. I don't know who chose this CMAR process, but it did not benefit anybody in this process. I do know the company you represent. I know them to be an upstanding company in business for many years. And I think that's another misnomer, that small black businesses want somebody to hand them something, but yet they've been in work for years. Every one of these on this memo has been in work for years doing the small stuff. They just want an opportunity to be part of something greater and something bigger. And I will leave it there, but I'll go back to say I would like to postpone this item to have a little bit more time to vet and understand. And yes, Mrs. Staten sent some kind of email that I didn't understand, so I don't have clarity on that as well. So spoke to Mr. Borchers, still not. Spoke to the city manager, still not. So I've done all the due diligence I know how. And if I sit here and been here 10 years fighting for MWBE and I can't figure it out myself, I know good and well subs can't figure it out. So I would like to have time to look through this, please. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think you want to change your motion.
Yes, I don't mind changing my motion to delay, but I would like to hear from Mr. Borchers.
But
I know Mr. Holston and
Mr. Holston, Dr. Wells.
Yes, and this is for Mr. City.
Motion.
Second.
Yes.
And Dr. Wells was the original.
You seconded.
You seconded.
Okay. You seconding the delay? Oh, because you. That, right.
We're moving it to delay.
Right, and that's what I liked.
So you're okay with your second?
Yeah.
No, Mr. Holston, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going to Mr. Jones' comments, and it's really more for me at this point about protocol and process. And so Assistant City Manager Davis and Mr. City Manager, what is the protocol when we have a contractor here, a subcontractor here who's trying to work with the CMR, but in his words, the CMR would not work with him? Are there any steps that we can take or things that we should do in that process?
I'll defer to Deputy City Manager Chris Wilson on this, but I do know because this is CMAR, we actually went above and beyond what we typically would do in this instance. We debundled it. I think it was 40 different. Which in my mind is already a logistical nightmare to have to debundle a project into 40 different pieces. We also had more than 2 pre-qualification meetings, about 2 pre-qualification meetings, if I could. And so I believe that we did, the percentage for M is not necessarily what we would also like to see. I'll be candid with you, but it's not for lack of trying to get enough. And so where we're today, again, because we're limited to really what we can do when it comes to CMAR, but we did go above and beyond what we'll typically do. I mean, Chris.
I would just simply say, if council would like to delay for the purposes of additional information, we certainly will support that. We do have a schedule, but we also are dedicated to making sure that we talk through what the process was and any standing questions that there may be. So specifically to your question, Councilman Holston, certainly we would have the opportunity during the review process to look at what that outreach was and what that communication was. And so as part of our follow-up to you during this period of time, we'll provide that information.
Yeah, so it does seem to me that there are enough questions here that I also would be looking for that delay.
Dr. Wells, Mrs. Stern, Mrs. Abuswaiter,
I just would like for the attorney to review some of the things I heard him say. Like, if you don't give somebody the amount of working hours, how in that world can you say what something is going to cost? I mean, I would like those things reviewed, reported back to us, because we may need to change some of the language so that that can be done. So I am for postponing this.
I can support postponing this. I guess my primary question is, if we postpone it and then decide that we want to turn this down and rebid it, what is that lead time? Are we better off determining now that we want it rebid so that we don't lose that extra month? And I would appreciate the city's response on that to see, you know, if we're going to come back and have the same participation and then turn it down, do we lose a month? And are we better off just saying we want to put it out, turning it down, putting it out for rebid?
I will respond to that. I'll be quite honest with you, rebidding it will take several months. So if a month allows us to provide some additional clarity to the item, I would rather take that month to provide that information to you all, because it will take several months to go back through this process regardless.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Call for the vote. Okay, let's vote.
Mr. Matheny?
No, I was just curious. It seems like there's a big group over here, and we don't have a whole lot left. Is there anybody that wanted to speak
No.
about this project?
Nobody has signed up.
Nobody signed up?
No.
It seems like somebody wants to speak. I don't know
Is
if they're
Mr.
allowed to.
McCants in the audience? He was said, do you want to speak to that item?
You got Mr. McCants and you got Mr. Lambert over there.
Well, we won't make an exception in this case, but the signups have closed.
Well, I think in this
Mr.
particular instance,
McCants,
thank you for the exception. I think
CC.
there's, was that CC? Oh, CC's here too, okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I think it's the right decision to delay it, postpone it until you can get more clarity on this particular bid. So, I mean, it's pretty simple.
So, Mr. McCants, let me ask you this question, or maybe I should ask CC. In CMARS, we've always been told CMARS would provide more opportunity because you could break down the packages. But in this case, the packages, even though they were broken down, really weren't broken down with the right type of work in them. And so,
Well, you got to look at the process.
right.
The bundling is good because you give more M's and MWBs an opportunity to bid on the process. So I think it's the right decision. I think it's pretty simple. If you
Right.
want more opportunity, take a little bit more time, go through the process, and make sure that everybody gets a bite at the apple.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, and I know this is a rarity, but I want to be clear. I was so troubled by what was going on. CC Lambert, C2 Contractors, but I happen to be one of the administrative companies on this project, along with my colleague, Calvin Curry. So let me speak to administrative first. So we endeavor to grow our business, and in both cases, meaning I'm a general contractor and there's construction pieces on there, and there's electrical, we could very well provide those electrical needs along with the construction. But in order to grow your business and to get into the CM at risk world, you have to have done it. So we have a partner who said, look, if you want to be a part of the CM at risk team, you can learn more about, I'm sorry, Dr. Wells, more about the administrative costs along with how to budget and run a CM at risk project, which means I'm no longer a construction. I cannot perform, but I can indeed learn more about the administrative piece and how to do a CM at risk. This is how we grow a business, several ways to commit to a process. The other is we can encourage and better advocate for minority-owned businesses. And to the manager's point, we broke this down into 40 different packages. 40. That is administrative nightmare. It costs more money and more time, but we demanded it. Me and my boy Curry, you got to give us more opportunities. So we thought we had done the right thing, and I'm saying think. The end result is we had and I don't want to bash your brother, but let's be clear. When you break down 40 packages and you give them an opportunity, when Jones says that he wasn't afforded the opportunity, that's not the case. We afforded him more than one opportunity. In fact, we provided an engineer that showed him exactly what he had to do and provide for the opportunity, but he turned in a bid and he didn't have a bid bond, so we really weren't supposed to open it. We went ahead and went through the process. He asked for unit pricing, or he actually wrote in unit pricing when we needed a lump sum, but that was right after he asked, what's the total bid amount? I mean, what should the quantities be? And I'm not trying to be funny, but you can ask that question, but we can't provide that for anyone. So we're asking to work through the process. We'll go through the drawings, we'll do all those things. But we did this twice. So when they came back and they didn't have minority participation, and you know as well as I do, Councilman Hightower, I am a beyond proponent for minority participation. Find a way to get business. We had the brothers, they wouldn't come out. But more importantly, this one, he didn't respond properly, and we even went through, and when he didn't respond properly on the first one, we went and told him what documents he needs to provide. He came back and provided them and still didn't provide a bid bond. And if you don't provide a bid bond, we can't open the package. So I'm saying you are being misled, and that's unfortunate.
I think that's why this month delay will add for clarification so we can all understand. And Mr. Borchers, if the month won't make a difference, then I think that will be helpful to kind of lay out the facts.
It will. We need to understand what happened.
Yeah, and can I thank you, because the issue is huge. And for you delay, that doesn't bother me, but I'm just saying know the facts, and I don't want us to misuse your intellectual capital.
But that's the reason we're delaying it. If there is some misnomers in here, then we'll find them. If not, then we'll see them too.
Perfect.
Because the bottom line is we've got to change and move forward, and we're still stagnant in where we are, and we've got to do
All
that.
right, perfect.
So,
Thank you for your time.
So
Kevin, you done? You good?
The motion has been changed to postpone this for 30 days, and that was moved by Mrs. Abuzawader and seconded by Dr. Wells, certainly at the urging of Mrs. Hightower. Council, please vote. A yes is to delay. And that passes 9-0. Is I-9, that's not necessary since I-8 didn't, right? Okay. Now we move on to I-10, which is a resolution approving contract 2023-0250 for $3,477,631 with Arcadis G&M of North Carolina, Inc. for the Townsend Water Treatment Plant. So moved by Mrs. Abuzawader, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. If there are no questions, Council, please vote.
Councilman.
And that passes 9-0. Item I-11 is a resolution to approve bid in the amount of $848,400 and authorizing execution of contract 2020-031C with Utility Service Co., Inc. for the 2023 Fall Protection System Improvements and Winola Court Water Tank Rehabilitation. Moved by Mrs. Hoffman, seconded by Mrs. Abuzawader.
And so let me say that I will vote no for this item as well, because, again, it seems to be we spend a lot of money in water resources, and if we have all these M's that are out here, then they ought and want to learn more, then this is opportunity here too as well to learn more. But we have folk who've been working in water resources, working over there, so I don't understand. On this particular instance, the goal was 2%. 2%. And they didn't even meet that. So this is what I'm saying about this process. When you don't even meet 2%. There could have been somebody to do community engagement or something, and it didn't happen. And I just think, I appreciate you delaying the other one. I've asked and asked till I'm blue in the face. We just got to do better. That's all I'll say. But I can't support it.
So this was moved by Mrs. Hoffman and seconded by Mrs. Abuzawader. And that passes 7-2 with Mayor Pro Tem Johnson and Mrs. Hightower voting against. We will take I-12 and 13 together. I-12 is a resolution approving $30 million reimbursement agreement with the North Carolina Department of Transportation for utility construction services supporting the Greensboro-Randolph megasite. And item I-13, an ordinance to amend the Water Resources Capital Project Revenue Bond Fund budget to appropriate funding for a reimbursement agreement for utility construction services at the Greensboro-Randolph megasite in the amount of $30 million.
Move I-12.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mrs. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. That passes 9-0. 8-1, I'm sorry, with Councilwoman Hightower voting no. I need a motion for I-13. Moved by Mrs. Hoffman, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-1 with Council Member Hightower voting against. I don't know why, but on my screen, it's still showing the Harper item. When the vote screen comes up, it allows me to vote, but it's not showing the current item. Only my screen. Item I-14 is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023-24 general fund budget in the amount of $4,862,679 to reappropriate approved American Rescue Plan enabled projects.
Move the item.
Second.
So that was moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. And that passes 8-1 with Mr. Matheny voting no. Item I-15 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 25-30 of the Greensboro Code of Ordinances for curbside collection.
Move the item.
We do have I think we need a,
Nope.
so that was,
You can
for
second
the
it.
record, that was Mrs. Hightower and seconded by you. We do have one speaker against, and I think we need a presentation by staff.
We are happy to go over the item again, but the presentation that we did during the last two work sessions was what we were going off of. This is the ordinance that
I'm just thinking
coincides.
for the public who is tuning in, they might,
We'll be happy to go over the proposal again.
okay. No. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, honorable council persons, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Randolph C. Ariel. I live at 1819 Dalton Road in Greensboro. I was born in Greensboro. As a matter of fact, I was born on this very spot. It used to be Piedmont Memorial Hospital, and it was set right where we're sitting today, so I feel very comfortable here. Also, as a disclosure, I've lived in every quadrant of Greensboro. I was raised in the Florida Street Freeman Mill area, and other than the northwest, I've lived in every quadrant of Greensboro. I have a problem with the proposed refuge and actually leaf collection. My problem basically, and I don't have a dog in this fight. Let me say I have a lawn service, but my lawn service has said they're not going to do this. They said they feasibly can't do it for the simple, I'm talking about bagging the leaves. They said they feasibly can't do it because of the time and effort that they would have to put into it. They'd have to charge a lot more. Well, that's not a major problem, but what I do worry about and what I am concerned about is I'm concerned about the people, the older people, people with limited mobility using these cans and bags. I looked at it, and these bags are about $3.19 per 5. A device that you use to put over the bags in order to sweep the leaves into the bags, about $26 at Lowe's. It's not so much the expense, but people living in underserved communities, they're not going to have the transportation to get these bags. So, and what happens basically when the bags get wet? I don't know, and I'm sure maybe management has discussed this. But what I propose, and I gave to the manager, I've been in conversation with the city of, Greenville, South Carolina. My son lives there. I've seen the equipment that they use, similar to this, that's absolutely amazing. They can be operated by one person or two persons. It's robotic. It has a robotic arm. It has a screen. It picks up leaves in seconds. It's not minutes. It requires only an operator, and these operators basically are in a safe environment. So I'd ask you to consider this type of equipment. The big reason is worker safety. The newspaper article was correct. The Department of Labor Statistics says that refuse collection is the fourth most dangerous occupation in the country. You're paying a lot in terms of workers' compensation. That was pointed out in the newspaper article, too. You're paying a tremendous amount in workers' compensation. And is that it? Well, I would ask that you table this for further study.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Ariel. I remember you at the restaurant quite often in the past. I do have a few things to say, and I'm going to try to be brief about them. But I want to make it very, very clear to those listening and watching, we are not ending loose leaf collection. We are not ending loose leaf collection. We are just going to pick it up in a different manner. The new method will pick up leaves and yard waste weekly at the same time. We will save taxpayer dollars. We've spent millions of taxpayer dollars on workers' comp claims by employees, Mr. Ariel referred to that, over the past several years who have been hurt by heavy yard waste containers, much heavier than allowed. Shoveling up wet leaves has also contributed to employee injuries. Again, saving taxpayer dollars. Storm drains won't get clogged. It costs a lot to unclog them, and clogged storm drains cause flooding. Public safety, and you can ask the police chief, the fire chief, and any EMS driver. Many times, fire trucks and ambulances have not been able to navigate down narrow streets where all of the leaves are in the middle of the road. There are times this has happened, and this reduces response times. Also, it's much safer for police vehicles, bikers, joggers, and walkers. We've all heard of people who have gotten injured because they slipped on the wet leaves or the wet grass in the middle of the road. The biodegradable bags, and I've heard some complaints about those, but they were tested for durability. They were put grass clippings in them and drenched them for 10 days. They held up extremely well, and then the new program will be picked up every 7 days. So if they're good for 10 to 14 days, and we're picking them up in 7, we shouldn't have a problem. Our leaf vacuum trucks, some people approached me about those. They are going to be repurposed for other uses. Staff will not be pulled from their regular duties for those 6 to 8 weeks during leaf drop season. Their regular duties include filling your potholes, picking up litter, and going to all those places where people dump furniture on the side of the road. This is going to make Greensboro much cleaner and much more environmentally safe. Staff has already had a pilot program. Everybody's telling me that it's not going to work because nobody's tried it. We've already had a pilot program, and there's going to be more in the fall. Plastic bags. Plastic bags of leaves will not have to be cut open individually and hiring more temp staff for that. Plus, that is dangerous work. And I have pictures of what it looks like at the landfill if anybody would like to see them. I've heard a lot about senior citizens. I honestly know that our staff will do everything they can to assist those who have disabilities and senior citizens. And I also know that the senior citizens who have approached me now have all told me, and I'm sure there's many who have not, but they don't blow their leaves into the street. They either get their grandchildren or someone in the family to assist them who do blow them in the streets. So I've actually had a few people that, you know, we were starting to get several comments and emails against, and now we're getting quite a few emails for doing the loose leaf program, which it's not even going to be loose leaf program anymore. It's going to be yard waste and loose leaf. It's all together weekly, and you won't have to wait for 8 weeks to have the leaves sitting in the gutter or sitting on your yard. So I am hoping this will certainly pass because I think it's going to be something good for the city of Greensboro. And, you know, it is unsightly to see all those leaves in the streets all the time. So thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess you know I'll be voting for it.
Thank you. Mrs. Thurr?
The department owes you money for that report.
I would just like to offer an amendment to this, that being that while the changes to the LEAF program will start not this fall, but the next fall, I'd like to offer an amendment that we stop using plastic bags for yard waste as of March 1st.
She's making an amendment, I think, to my motion.
Yeah, so you would have to accept that amendment, but I feel like we can stop plastic sooner than that, and we should stop plastic sooner than that.
Well,
in speaking to Griffin, he mentioned that he felt like if we're not doing leaf collection the new way this year, that we should get through the leaf season and still allow the plastic. And he felt like with education time, et cetera, that March 1st would be a reasonable time for the public to switch from using plastic bags for their yard waste to the paper bags or cans.
Thank you.
So-
Mrs. Hightower, do you accept that amendment?
Well, let me ask this question, and I'm all for stopping the plastic bags. I thought we were going to go ahead on and really try to stop them as soon as possible, like immediately.
That's not the way it reads right now. We had everything at the same time.
So we're waiting to do.
We'll go through a season the way we are.
We were attempting to get through the leaf season to give people a chance to shift in terms of the product. And certainly we were looking at trying to make as much of it available for people to use, including the cans. But in understanding this would allow us to get through the leaf season, we could certainly accommodate removing plastic March 1st.
So would our leaf season be over March 1st?
We'll do our best. That's part of the challenge.
Yeah, because I would like to see it be over before, but that's fine. I'll accept the amendment to the motion to add stopping the plastic bag usage as of March 1, 2024.
As my second, yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Tammy, do you have anything else to add?
Nothing else other than, will we be distributing the cans as soon as we have them? Is that the plan? So if they come in March or April or May or June, we'll go ahead and get those distributed?
Absolutely, but we need lead time for that order, as I understood it.
I understand that. I'm just saying we're not going to wait until the fall. If we have them, we can go ahead and get them out.
Yeah, that's not our intention. We want to implement as soon as possible, but after that lead time, we'll have a better sense.
Thank you. I fully support this, and we'll look forward to voting for it.
I have a quick question. Whoever's next.
Zach, then Hugh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we've talked about this quite extensively for probably 15 years. So I won't belabor because I'm pretty good at counting. I would think, though, thinking about Mrs. Thurm's amendment and thinking about Councilwoman Hightower, and I think for once that I know of in particular on a hot topic, we actually all agree on one thing, which is to get rid of plastic. And so I would put potentially in the thought process of by the end of this year, meaning December 31st. And what you're talking about is really letting people that have the plastic bags get through some of that. After December, you're pretty much done. I mean, I know what we did. I know what happened last year. But that's the only thing I was thinking about that is that's the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, well, and let me finish my comments, and y'all consider that for a second, because my comments are this. We all agree on the plastic bag removal. One of the things that first comes to my mind is we literally, in the last 2 years, by majority of council, have raised taxes $120 million. It's a lot of money. And now we're taking a service away. I don't think that's very appropriate when we just passed a budget that pays for it. The injuries that were discussed, and I know I was on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever it was, really were focused on bulk collection. And I've made a couple calls, and I've talked to some folks that have worked in the city that I've known since I started working with the city in 2005. And you can't attribute an injury to loose leaf collection. You can't. But you can to bulk collection. And y'all confused it by combining that. And that was my point Thursday. by combining bulk collection, yard waste collection, taking loose leaf out, separate. Our workers' comp for loose leaf only was not represented appropriately. In regards to our aging population, our senior citizens, the thought process that city workers can help those that are disabled or aging. So now, instead of saving money, we're going to have our city employees go rake leaves for all the aging population. That doesn't work.
No, that's not what was said.
Hold on. You said that.
May I clarify?
Feel free.
We have a service for disabled when they get a note from their doctor or a senior from their doctor that someone from the city will walk down or go and get their cart. The same would apply when their family member or neighbor or grandchildren or son, they would go down and get the cart. No, they would not be raking. They would not be raking.
Could not help with the leaves. So they don't help with the leaves, but they could help with but they're not, how are the aging population going to get the leaves in the 95-gallon bucket? A third can.
Not doing it now.
A third can be quite cumbersome, especially on smaller community homes. So I saw some emails about that being cumbersome. And it is cumbersome to carry them every week up and down. The thought process was we're taking some alleviation off of our city staff, but you're placing more on the citizens while still taxing them at the same rate. And so the thought that we take care of our employees is one thing, and that's great, and we have. But we also have to take care of our citizens. So now they've got an extra can that they're filling up to the rim every week and taking down to the street and back and forth. I disagree with that. I think revisions could be made. Absolutely, like I said before, and I'm going with Griffin tomorrow. I told him earlier today this is not my first rodeo at the White Street landfill, but I look forward to hearing his comments about other things. But I do think revisions could be made. The other part on this is something that the city sorely lacked last year because we didn't quite know how to do it, and that's called code enforcement. We heard a lot about that. We heard a lot about how do you enforce compliance on raking the leaves into the street. How in the world are we thinking that we're going to be able to now start finding people and have code enforcement officers to make sure people are in compliance? I do think Mr. Ariel, and I haven't talked to Greenville, South Carolina, made a great point. And when I talked to some folks that is currently now in field operations, one of the things that they said that they would recommend would be new technology, would be new trucks. It was just ironic that this is exactly what they're talking about, folks that are actually in the business and do it for the city. The fact of the matter is, it was stated that we're not ending loose leaf collection, we're changing the way we do it. We are ending loose leaf collection as this community has known it for well over 20-some years. Make no mistake about it. And so taking that service away while still maintaining that high tax rate, I think there's a lot of questions on this. This is the fastest ordinance I've ever seen of such a major change in the city of Greensboro in my 18 years. This is the fastest change. I commend the assistant city manager on getting something done. And I've also sat up here and heard Councilwoman Hightower say, well, I've been wanting to do this for a year. I've been talking about this for 2 years. Yet this is getting slammed. I think we need to press pause and really think about some of the emails we've gotten from our citizen base and really think about all that it's going to take to do it, in particular on enforcement and compliance. I'm done.
I have to say that we haven't been thinking about it that fast because they've been talking about it for 15 years.
Well, the reason why it never got done in 15 years was because all the issues related to exactly what I just stated. And it looks good on paper. And sometimes it can look really good on paper. But once you enact it, it was a mistake. And I know I can count, Ms. Hightower.
Mr. Holston, then Dr. Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Again?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I had
Thank
it.
you, Madam Mayor.
I never spoke actually at all, other than to
Thank-
make the motion.
thank you,
We
Ma-
don't
thank you,
need to hear.
Madam Mayor.
We don't need to
Mr.
hear.
Holston.
Thank you, Madam
Dr.
Mayor.
Wells, Mrs. Hightower, Mrs. Abuzawader.
And I also can count. And I also am firmly in support of eliminating the plastic bags. That's not even an issue. If this were just a vote on whether to get rid of plastic bags, it would be 9-0, and it would have taken 5 seconds. This is about loose leaf collection that is ending with the passage of this item. In any shape, form, or fashion, it is ending. It's either going to be, it's not going to be loose in the bag, it's not going to be loose in the can. It's ending. There have been a lot of things said regarding, for instance, we're going to be able to eliminate injuries. And I still find it very difficult to understand that walking behind a truck with a vacuum, standing walking, is less injurious than bending and picking up 10 bags per home on a street, continuously, from street to street to street. I would defy anyone to think that is less injurious. We talked about doing a trial for this program. This is a loose leaf collection, and the trial was done in the summer. The summer. The leaves are still in the trees. In the very least, there should be a real trial, like a real business would do it. Fast food, all the others, they have trials. And they allow their customers to sense and feel and understand the transition. Give them a shot at it in advance. And we haven't necessarily done that. There's a savings being promoted as a part of this program. And there is a savings. There's a savings for the city. But the cost burden is being shoved over to the property taxpayer, to the property owner. That property owner has to purchase those bags, has to purchase the equipment to make it easier to get the leaves into the bags. So there's a savings, but it's not a savings for everyone. And we have raised property taxes for the past 2 terms. And
I voted against both of them.
absolutely. And we have the opportunity, or I'd like for us to be more aspirational. Oftentimes we talk about what our sister and partner cities are doing. We know that our sister city in Raleigh is doing both the biodegradable bags in addition to loose leaf collection. Why can't Greensboro be as aspirational and try the very same thing? At least to be transitional forward. It's more the and in both versus the either or. Again, there's that third can. I know that if I'm correct, that about 40% of our residents are using the loose leaf program. Are 100% of the residents receiving the third can?
Yes, that is the plan, unless we will offer an option for them to opt out.
So they've been opt out. Right, and there's some people who don't use the loose leaf program today and are happy to get rid of it. And so it's just tough that we have a program product, and I'll tell you that I really appreciate the comments that have come in from the public to the council email. I may be wrong, but I believe that there have been more comments and more email into council for the loose leaf program removal than there was for the budget. And that tells you the kinds of passion that we have on this topic and why there are many on this council who've been saying that we've been dealing with this for 15 years. Because it is a hot button issue. And when you have a hot button issue, you have to treat it like a hot button issue and treat it very carefully with those folks who put us in these positions and the like. And I don't know that we've really done that this has been a fairly rapid process without a strategic plan to get us through it. There are many neighborhoods that have piles and piles and piles and piles of leaves, and some have absolutely none. And I think that those who have piles and piles and piles of leaves, we need to be very respectful of those leaves and not hold it against them because they have leaves and they pile them in the streets. It's just we need to find a way to work with them, to engage with them and make sure that they're a part of this process and that their property taxes benefit them as they do other people in our community. So from my standpoint, again, I am fully in favor of getting rid of plastic bags. Absolutely. And lastly, I'm fully opposed to getting rid of the loose leaf program. And I want to thank, I see Dr. Dornstadt back in the back, our Chief Sustainability Officer. I really support what you're talking about when it comes to sustainability and what you bring to the table and the light you brought to the city. I just think that there are ways that we can do and in both and not either or. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Dr. Wells?
All right, I'd like to ask Mr. Matheny, have you been on that tour to the landfill yet?
I'm going tomorrow morning, but I've been to White Street Landfill.
You what?
I've been there before, and I'm going tomorrow
Now,
morning.
I mean recently.
I'm going tomorrow morning.
Okay, you going tomorrow morning. Have you been, Mr. Holston?
I certainly have, and again, the point is that plastic bags is not on the issue. It's the loose leaf collection.
Now, the reason that we're moving as quickly, most of us have been on that tour. Now, once those bags come in the plastic, and I have pictures in my phone, those people have to cut the bags, take those old wet leaves out, put them in a pile. Then they put them in a pile. Then here comes a tractor or something that scoops them up, puts them in another pile. There was a pile out there that's been there since 2.5 years of leaves. And the people that were cutting the bags on it, they have to take breaks every 15 minutes because it's hot out there. And they were out there in the middle of all these leaves, picking them up. So because we saw this, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, we saw it. That's why we're moving quickly, because it was, I think Councilwoman Hightower said it was inhumane to have people doing that. Now you talk about the taxes. Do we take taxes over saving the planet? I got more positive remarks and emails about people who are so glad that you're going to this because it is better for the planet. We think differently from what we thought 15 years ago. We see more things and we know it. I heard something, I think it was just yesterday. One thing that human beings can do is can change their behavior. Now that's all we're dealing with is change. Human beings, the only one can look in the mirror and say, I want to do something different. I want to change my life. I want to change the way I look. And we can do it. Now, there's nothing wrong. I know people don't want to change, but you hear a lot of people, after things change, they say, oh, this is so much better. So that's what we're counting on, people saying, oh, this is so much better. But there's no need for us to sit up here and let it go another 10 years of things Zach said, 15 years. We don't need to do that. We see the need for the change. That's the reason for the swiftness. That's the reason, Hugh, that we're not going to sit on it, because we can make the change. And we are hoping that this change will be beneficial to all of the citizens in Greensboro. I know you don't feel like changing, but it'll be better for all of us. So let's just vote to go on and make the change and do it as soon as possible so that we can move forward.
Sharon, Mary Kay, Nancy.
So I think pretty much the audience knows where we're going. As you say, you can count, hold up 5, absolutely. But let me just say to Goldie's point, yeah, it may have moved a little faster in this go-round, while it may have had 15 years. I know since I've been here 10, we've been talking about it for quite a while, but I think this shows that if we can move this, we can move other things. So I'm going to count on that happening instead of saying, well, you moved this so quickly. So now I know if you can move it, we can do other things and accomplish other things a little bit more expediency. Quite honestly, only 40% of the residents use this service. I don't use loose leaf. First of all, they hardly got no trees. So if you ride to certain segments of town, you don't see those trees, okay? But the individuals who do reside on that side of town rake their little bit of leaves to the curb, and I have a neighbor, and she lives on the corner there, and she rakes her leaves, and I see them for about 3 months because it takes just that long to pick them up. I see sticks starting to stick out of them. Somebody rides by and throws a bottle in them. It's dangerous to suck those leaves up in that equipment. So yeah, while you think a machine is sucking it up, and maybe it's more injurious to pick up a bag, it's more injurious for that bottle to get sucked up in that leaf and something happen and it shoot out some shards. Somebody get it in their eye and lose their sight. That sounds extreme, but it's a possibility of injuries happening. So I think this has just simply been a privileged service that I personally think we should have charged for if people want to have it, but we didn't go that route. We're going this route, and I support this route. But to, I think Goldie's other point, I think I personally, and that's why I asked, how soon could we stop the plastic bags? Because it is inhumane when you go to the landfill and you see people pulling with box cutters, cutting those plastic bags open and then shifting leaves, wet leaves. The one thing that the presentation talked about, and I hate that we didn't see it again, is while no, they didn't put the leaves in the bag, they put grass in the bag, but the greater piece of it was a plastic bag holds water. The biodegradable bags don't. So it's going to be a little bit easier to pick up so that you can put it in that can if you need to. And if those of us who don't do leaves, and I have a grass man, but we don't have to have that extra can, okay? So it's all right that I don't have that extra can, because he just blows the few little leaves that come from the other side over there around the tree. And that's an option. So I think it's time for us to be a little bit more forward thinking in this and try this. And then lastly, I want to say, when you talk about equipment, they have to buy loose leaf equipment. And you want to buy now another new machine. They can't even get more trash trucks that drive out in the county to pick up the trash we done annexed into the city. How you going to buy them this truck to pick up some leaves and we're not ordering trucks to pick up trash? That don't sound right to me either. So I think we need to really think about this. I really wish we could stop plastic bags before March 1st, in all sincerity, but I'm going to respect Griffin. He's thinking it's going to be That's the best? You feel comfortable with that? Because if you don't, I'll push it up further. You're okay with that? Okay. Well, if he's okay, he's the one got to do the work, so I want to check with staff. That's who I need to check with. But then, if that's the case, I'm in full support. No bags, no leaves. Thank you.
Mary Kay and then Nancy.
Okay, so I'm going to say something personal. My husband and I have never put a leaf in the street. We mulch them and put them in our garden. We mulch them and put them around our trees. And I guarantee you, I've got the best trees and bushes in the neighborhood. And yes, we have some of the largest oaks that drop a horrendous amount of leaves. But we blow them back to our house, mulch them, and put them around the garden. We don't use any chemicals in our garden, all of those things, because we have the nutrients from the leaves. So now I'm going to not be personal. We've really been talking about this since pretty much Sharon came on council, long time ago, because people were complaining about leaves in the street and them being wet. You know, I don't remember if it was Zach or Mr. Holston said we need to be aspirational. Okay, Mr. Holston said, well, why don't we aspire to do something different for once and see how it works? If everybody would just try. Don't automatically assume it's not going to work. Can't we be an innovative city and try something different that in the long run will save taxpayer money? We'll keep storm drains unclogged. We'll stop injuries. And I wanted to talk about injuries a little bit. We have had workman's comp injuries because of leaves, because when they are wet and they try to shovel them, many of them have hurt their backs. So yes, I'm on my soapbox. I prefer March 1st because there's a lot of leaves that drop in February. We had that happen last year, and I think March 1st and the recommendation of staff is perfect. So my colleagues, Mr. Holston and Mr. Matheny, want to get rid of plastic bags. Okay, let's talk about that a second. They had just said that we are putting on the taxpayers' backs to have to buy those brown bags. Am I not correct?
Correct.
So I'm a little confused there because they want taxpayers to buy those brown bags so we can get rid of plastic bags, yet that was one of the points made, that we're putting a burden on our taxpayers by making them have to buy the bags. So I'm going to kind of finish with that. Did you want to say something, Mr. Matheny? You can jump in, but only on that point.
25 bags is $12.50.
I will tell you this.
Well, no, wait.
Well, I guess let me finish.
Yeah,
I'm almost
Mary
done.
Kay's done, then it's Nancy.
So that's the whole thing. I think we need to try something different. I think we do need to take care of our city. We need to make our city look better because those employees cannot pick up litter or fix potholes or do anything else until they are pulled off of this. Our season last year, my last point, our leaf season last year was November, December, January, February, and into March. That's 5 months. 5 months that we had leaves falling. If we pick up weekly, which we are going to do, it should help. Plus, it doesn't start till 2024. So I'm done.
Mrs. Hoffman, then I have a brief comment.
Very brief. Like Dr. Wells, I will say that the text and the emails that I've received from citizens in District 4 have overwhelmingly been positive rather than negative. I think some analysis was done, and even for large lots in Greensboro, it's estimated that probably the bag usage would be around 25 bags during leaf season. That's a cost at 50 cents a bag of $12.50. So it's not an extraordinary expense, and I think, you know, we are making the right decision for the planet and the earth that we live on at this point, and for future generations. So again, I will say that the citizens I've heard from have overwhelmingly been in favor.
Just quickly, I'm glad that we're not talking about burrito bags, and that we put that to rest quickly. I want to make sure that those the new toters will be equitably distributed. So please figure out how you're going to get them throughout the whole city on an equitable basis. And what I would request is that we really advertise the heck out of this. You know, whether it is inserts in bills and on GTN, and buy space when you can, or do PSAs, put them on billboards, because I know that we are all going to hear about it. But, you know, we've maybe reach out to some churches, but I think it's very important that we get the word out. And for those people who have difficulty moving, now I know the phones are probably going to ring because everybody is going to say they have difficulty moving the trash containers. You can call 336-373-CITY, and you're put on a list if you're older or unable to move the toters to the curb. That staff will help you with it. It's a program that we've had for many years. And a doctor's note. What about a birth certificate? All right, are we done?
Yeah, may I just make
All
one
right.
more comment?
I
would hope that we might look at this also in terms of an opportunity of how we might market some information to our citizens throughout the city, and things like composting and mowing, as Mary Kay does, mowing some of your leaves during the season. I know the many years that Jack and I lived on Kemp Road West, we had lots of leaves, but we had 2 containers we bagged, but I had 2 composting bins in the back that were hidden, and we also mowed to mulch those in. So there's a combination of things that you can do, and I think we could possibly use this as a learning opportunity as well.
Okay, so we do have a motion by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. And that passes 7-2, with Mr. Holston and Mr. Matheny voting no. That is the end of our published agenda. Now is the time for boards and commissions appointments.
Madam Mayor.
One more item, Mayor.
We still have
Yeah,
I-16.
we got the item about the quorum. The quorum.
Oh, yes. I saw boards and commissions and thought we were making appointments. Ordinance amending Chapter 2 in reference to the boards and commissions quorums. This was postponed from the July 18th, 2023 meeting. Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Thurm.
I just want to say about this item, I'm glad to see that it's only the quasi-judicial boards, because I don't want us to stop other participation. So like we have residents who may work in another county and they would like to participate, but maybe they can't get here by 5:30, but they could do Zoom. So is that going to see, we're still going to allow that, and because I don't want to stop participation. And now we know what to tell the people we appoint. You've got to be here for this board if that's one we're using. So I just want to make sure. I read it and I like it and I support it, but I just want to.
That's correct. We tried to, hear where you guys are coming from and create a nuanced set of rules that applied and protected the legal concern that we have. So.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Yes, I wanted to thank you as well, because I know that I was definitely vocal at that meeting, and several others may have been too, because, there are some where, people can't leave their homes, or, that they've got small children, and it's hard for them to hire babysitters and come down here, and we do want to see some of that younger generation get involved. So I agree with what Ms. Hightower said, that it's going to be a lot easier, and we won't have to tell people that they have to disrupt their home lives totally, as long as they can pay attention on the meeting. And I think we're pretty adamant about that. They must be present for the meeting. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, I got a quick comment. And since you moved this so quick, see how things are moving quick? Then you move this quick. There we go.
All right. So that was moved by Mr. Holston. Am I in the right spot? And seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Busewader?
And that passes 9-0. Boards and commissions appointments. I am GC Jack. I would like to appoint Wendy Cutler to replace DJ O'Brien. She met with the GC Jack Executive Committee. So I do have a second from Mrs. Thurm. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I also realize that I have a zoning appointment, which was an at-large appointment. It is a D1 slot, and I would like to appoint Crystal Black to that slot.
She lives in D5 now.
Mayor, Crystal doesn't live in D1 anymore.
That's what.
She's in D, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll bring something back next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, she
said she's going to resign because it's during school hours.
Yeah.
All right, I will come back with that next meeting. Mrs. Busewader.
None this evening. Some of my colleagues have some for my council liaison appointments.
Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem.
Not right now.
Mr. Holston. Mrs. Thurm.
Yes, I have 3. I would like to reappoint Sarah Kalana, who currently sits on the Commission for the Status of Women.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 9-0.
I'd also like to reappoint Dr. Sean Smith to the Human Rights Commission.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And my last one for tonight is reappointing Susan Henshaw to the Parks and Rec Commission.
All in favor? Oh, do we have a second? Second by Mr. Holston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that passes.
That's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman?
She didn't have it.
No. So then that brings me to 3. Mr. Matheny? Dr. Wells?
Yes, I'd like to appoint Washay Downing to the Planning and Zoning Commission, replacing Richard Bryson.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. That passes. Okay, comments. Mrs. Hightower?
Couple of things I would like to ask staff, if I may. First, I guess MWB officer might need to provide me how many low bids have change orders, because while low bids win the contract, they all come back with change orders, which increases substantially many times the dollar amount on the contracts. And do they use the contingency to sometimes fill the change order? So I'd like to get staff to provide that to me. And we are in the midst of Griffin and Strong disparity study, and I'm sure that would be something that they would probably be interested in as well. Secondly, I'd like to know, where are the take-home cars going? I heard something kind of disturbing the other day, and that they're going 30 miles outside the city limits. Well, that means they're all going to the county, somewhere in the county. And that's helping other counties, but is it helping us the way it was proposed to help us? I asked this question when Chief James was here, if he knew where the cars were going, and I never got an answer. Not trying to find out where people live, obviously, but at the same time, if you say the presence of the cars are something that could help to stifle crime, and we're having a lot of issues in one area versus another, take-home cars could make a difference, since they're now they got approved and they're costing $25,000 a piece or more or whatever. But where's that impact? And where are they going? And I'm asking this because today I had somebody who told me, who lives off Burlington Road, and she said, well, I got 2 on my street. I got one when I turn in the neighborhood. I got one on the other side of the neighborhood. She in the county. So I am interested to know, where are they going? And if they're not coming to the east side of town, how do we make that happen? We've incentivized down payment assistance, and I'd like to know with that, how many have taken advantage of that as well? So I'm asking a whole bunch of questions, but I really need this data, because I think it's critically important to how we are evaluating the system and how it's working. Thank you.
Dr. Wells? Comments? Yes. I gotta think.
Yes, with council's permission, I'd like to ask our planning department to really put on their calendar a corridor study for West Friendly Avenue from Holden to Mears Chapel, please.
Right now, that it would probably be good if there was some direction.
Well, I know that we had an earlier chat with our planning director about that. We can do that, but I cannot guarantee that the rezoning will still not happen before we get to that, because of course it takes a while. It takes a while to get a corridor plan done. So you definitely don't want to freeze rezoning petitions from coming up during that period. So we will have a conversation on how we can do that. But we did chat earlier.
Yeah, we did West Friendly from Holden Road to Elam in 2016, I believe. Okay. Maybe we started it at the end of 15, but completed it in 16. So, so this is the other section of West Friendly that I think it's important for us to put on the calendar.
We'll take a look at that.
To do as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thurm? Mayor Pro Tem?
I just wanted to let you know I represented a mayor and the city council at 2 very large religious organizations at the Curry Center. People are loving coming to Greensboro, having their conventions, having their various meetings. Last month, my favorite group, the cafeteria workers, were here. And I just want to share this with y'all. This is not being anti-America by any means, because I love this country. But they were cafeteria workers, and I asked them, how many of you know Richard Stans? Nobody raised their hand. I said, I've been telling people how intelligent you all were, but if none of you know Richard Stans, all the children at school know him, say his name every day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for Richard Stans. So they a great group, and the groups that I spoke to, Madam Mayor, were massive. So
That's great. Thank you.
everybody need a laugh
And
sometime.
I appreciate. Oh, Dr. Wells.
I had to get myself together. There are two big events going on over in District 2. On the 19th, there will be a Classy Ladies giveaway. So that's at Gethsemane Baptist Church. But I need you to go to my Facebook page, both my Facebook pages, and then on the 26th, there's going to be a big festival, resource fair and book bag giveaway at 11:30 to 2 o'clock at A&T Trust Stadium. So the Greensboro Housing Authority is sponsoring that. So the 19th and the 26th, there'll be great giveaways. So just check my Facebook page and you'll see them.
Thank you. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing much, but I did want to lift up, we mentioned a lot of names at the beginning of our meeting this evening about people who had passed in the community, and I just wanted to lift up a couple of mine. I did want to give condolences. Dr. Wells and I were able to attend the funeral today for former Chief Brian James' mother, and it was a beautiful homegoing service. And a lot of things came out, a lot of smiles and a lot of tears, but it was just very heartwarming. And I didn't realize that she had worked for the post office for so long, and then she was a scat driver, and so many things she did for the community, but she was always quiet about it. And I got to know her, and of course Dr. Wells and the concerned citizens of Northeast Greensboro, so several of them were there, and the church was pretty full, so it was a nice homegoing. Also, the family of Saliba Hanhan, I think most of you know, he started Jerusalem Market in the city, and what was said about him at his funeral was the fact that he brought everybody together over food. So that was pretty wonderful. All opposing people, political people, everyone in the community could go there and get some advice and get some information and some good food. And then his legacy lives on through his children, who have opened Jerusalem Market right down the street here on Elm Street. And personally, my boys grew up with Omar and Issa, so same age. We were all best friends, and it was kind of like we thought Saliba would live forever. And my last one was Deputy Kathy James. She was a very dear friend for many, many years. We did lose touch a little bit over the years, but I did go to see her in hospice, so I'm thankful that I did that. And it's tough when you hear so many people who have passed away in the last couple of weeks that you really think about yourself and hug the ones you love.
Absolutely. Mr. Holston?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick shout out to our friends over at Faith Action. Back on August 4th, they had a wonderful resource and wellness fair. I believe they registered and gave out book bags to over 300 kids in our community. It was a fantastic turnout from the community, from Cone Health and their mobile wellness van, to the GPD, who did their very best on the grill, to the fire department. But it was just the energy and the excitement, and to Joel and his team at Faith Action, I want to say congratulations. It was an excellent event. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I got to add a couple.
But wait, wait.
Too late.
All right, Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, I need to add, Mary Kay made me remember, we lost Mr. Clarence Avant. He was a city resident, but he was really a CEO and chairman of Motown. He was called the Black Godfather of music. He lived in L.A., but he's from here, went to Dudley High School, and he passed away. I think he was 92 years of age. And then also I wanted two events coming up that Goldie, one of them is a Day of Dignity, which will be held on Saturday the 19th at the mosque on Bessemer Avenue, and that's from 12 to 4. And they also will be doing book bags giveaway, food giveaway, and all of that. And then on Sunday, August 20th at 1 o'clock, there will be a back-to-school event at the Four Seasons Mall, at the front of the mall, and they're anticipating giving away 1,000 plus. And then congratulations to Alana Allen, who's I Am Queen. She had her back-to-school giveaway last Saturday. She gave away 750 bags in 1 hour. 1 hour at Windsor Center. And so we're going to have to help her next year find somewhere to do her book bag giveaway, because by then Windsor will probably be in a state of disrepair. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Yes, a reminder that we have two new employees who will start with us next week, August 23rd. Jackie will be our new Chief Creative Economy Officer, replacing Ryan Deal, starting August 23rd. And Reggie Mason will be first Transit Director. So we'll definitely make sure to introduce them to you in person on this start. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager?
I don't have anything.
Mr. City Attorney? You just
don't
got
have
demoted. We got to have a little fun. Nothing? All right.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.